everybody, and thank you very much for joining us today for this panel session where we'll be looking at UK-India relations, particularly in terms of trade and investment, but also considering the wider strategic relationship between our two nations. And we're joined by an all-star cast on the panel today with three peers and a serving minister, each providing their insights on this most important of issues. I'm grateful to each of them for attending, and I'm also grateful to the hundreds of people who've registered to attend this session on Zoom and those who haven't registered but are watching this live on YouTube. In the second half of the hour that we've got today, we'll be coming to the audience for questions, and I'd ask anyone with a question for our panel to put it in the Q&A box on Zoom or put it on Twitter and it'll be brought to my attention. We'll do as best we can to get through as many of those questions as possible. But before that, I'd like to ask each of our panelists to offer some introductory thoughts on the topic. The topic's a wide-ranging one, and we've asked them to cover the trading relationship between the UK and India, the shared history between our nations, and whether that's a help or hindrance as we look to work together in the future, where we can best collaborate going forward on shared issues, and what the implications are of Boris Johnson inviting India, along with Australia and South Korea, to attend the G7, perhaps in an attempt to shift the geopolitical plates. Plenty for us to get stuck into then, and that's without even mentioning the cricket. So with no further ado, I'd like to invite our first panellist to offer his thoughts. Ranil Jayawardena has been an MP and a Minister in the Department for International Trade since May of last year. We're particularly lucky to have him today, given that the Trade Secretary and the Minister for Commerce and Industry in India just issued a statement on the enhanced trade partnership between our two nations. He's the Minister for International Trade, which means he covers future free trade agreements and barriers to market access, amongst other issues. Over to you, Ranil.
Well, thanks, Nick, and it's a huge pleasure to join you and wonderful colleagues today as we really do look ahead to what are fantastic opportunities for growth that lie before us as Britain retakes her place as an independent trading nation on the world stage, using our newfound freedom as a nation to forge ever deeper, stronger bonds of prosperity with partners worldwide, including our close friend and ally, India, leaves our society and our people better off. And that is something that we must double down on as we seek to bounce back from coronavirus, because in a world changing faster today than ever before, as we all plan our route to recovery, it is this freedom to rethink, reimagine and rebuild that will help us adapt to the huge challenges that the whole world faces and allow our people to embrace the fantastic opportunities for trade-led growth that emerge around us. To my mind, it is crucial that Britain and India work side by side with other democracies and free trading nations to overcome these challenges and embrace the enormous opportunities for global economic growth to come, confronting the spectre of protectionism wherever we find it. The truly global Britain that we are seeking to create will be the greatest of friends and the most committed of allies for all our democratic partners on the international stage, defending our interests and those we share with India and other like-minded nations with ever greater energy, drive and determination, and using our independent seat in the G7, the G20 and the WTO, as well as other international fora, to champion the rules-based trading system, open markets and free trade with renewed vigour. We look forward to welcoming India as our guest whilst we host the G7 summit in Cornwall later this year, as leaders of the world's most advanced economies and open societies come together on our shores to address the issues that will shape the future of our planet. The G7 does have an important role to play in helping lead the global economy out of the shadow of COVID-19. And we want to use our presidency this year to catalyse international action to kickstart economic growth and energise the debate on the solutions to our shared health and climate change challenges that confront us. And as the global economy resets, reorganises and reforms in the wake of the pandemic, it is crucial that Britain, India and other key partners work together to ensure that ever more nations worldwide can share in the rich rewards that free trade can bring. Britain is already using her newfound freedom to secure trade deals with countries worldwide, with 64 agreed so far, including the EU. It accounts for almost £900 billion worth of our trade covered by trade deals. And this includes world-class agreements with Japan, South Korea, and more to come. And I hope in the not too distant future, we can add a free trade deal with India to the list. Because our economic symbiosis that our nations share is profound, with entrepreneurs and innovators from Birmingham to Bombay, Cardiff to Calcutta, Glasgow to Goa, all pushing the boundaries in the cutting edge industries that are changing the way that we live and work across our planet. Total trade between Britain and India hit £24 billion in the year 2019-2020, up almost 10%. And we are the largest European market for India's goods exports, with hundreds of Indian companies doing business across our country, employing more than 80,000 people. We, in turn, are proud to be the #1 destination in Europe for Indian investors, from startups to scale-ups to international conglomerates. And Britain is one of the biggest European investors in India as well. This is a partnership of truly global importance, and the vast potential that we share was shown most recently by the way our nations work together to create innovative solutions to the challenges presented by COVID, spearheading the drive to ensure the fair global distribution of vaccines that is key to reopening the world's economy. A superb example of this great endeavour is the work of India's Serum Institute, which is busy producing 1 billion doses of the COVID vaccine that was developed here in Britain by the University of Oxford and AstraZeneca, whilst millions more doses are being made by the Indian-owned company Wockhardt at their factory in Wales. Our nations will continue to work side by side to develop the vaccines of the future through the joint UK-India Vaccines Hub that we launched last year, sharing the best practice for regulation, clinical trials, and fostering innovation as we place ourselves at the vanguard of change in this field. And the fantastic potential for our economic partnership between Britain and India does not stop there. From fintech to edutech, automation to artificial intelligence, British and Indian ingenuity and expertise is combining to energize the cutting-edge sectors that are reshaping our global economy. And with Britain, one of the world's great tech hubs, and India, a global epicenter of tech innovation, we are perfect partners in driving forward the digital revolution that is sweeping the planet. And we will work with India to develop the green technologies that are transforming the way people live and work worldwide too, as we seek to help build the global economy back better from the pandemic. So that's why when Britain hosts the COP26 conference on climate change later this year, we will champion the critical importance of green tech in tackling climate change as we strive to meet our goal of producing zero carbon emissions by 2050. And our Trade Secretary, Liz Truss, and I have had many bilateral calls with our counterparts, and Liz has used her visit to India over the last few days to highlight opportunities for closer collaboration between our nations in this sector, including signing a memorandum of understanding on the development of offshore wind, an area which Britain is a world leader, and the creation of a solar energy partnership between us as well. During the JETCO, the Joint Economic and Trade Committee meeting held between Britain and India last year, we committed to work together to remove barriers to trade. And we agreed to deliver an enhanced trade partnership, as you referred to, Nick, as the framework for strengthening our economic ties. And if we are successful at achieving our goals, there really is the potential for a future trade agreement, which promises to turbocharge the growth between us. India's Minister of State for Commerce, Puri, and I are working further on these discussions. And to underpin our ever closer trade relationship between Britain and India, we will seek to strengthen the living bridge that binds our two nations together culturally and economically, whilst the new points-based immigration system that we are introducing will prioritise skills over nationality so that we can welcome the best and the brightest from across the globe. As two of the world's most dynamic, innovative and truly global trading nations, Britain and India can help lead the world in harnessing the economic potential and export and investment opportunities that only free trade can bestow. Because without free trade, there can be no sustainable global growth. So I say, let's move forward together into an exciting new age for international trade and investment, Britain and India, side by side, as we shape this golden future together for generations to come. Thank you, Nick.
Ranil, thank you so much. Such a positive vision of the future. And I was really struck by the story of that collaboration over vaccines and the success story that has been. And I'd love to probe a bit later about what are the lessons we can draw from that in terms of future collaboration in other industries and other sectors. Our next speaker is Lord Rami Ranger. Lord Ranger was born in India, but the UK is his home now, and he's achieved huge commercial success here through the company he founded, Sunmark, a company that he still chairs. Sunmark is notable because it's the only company in the UK to have been awarded 5 consecutive Queen's Awards for Enterprise. He's also a patron of the Conservative Friends of Israel, and we're very much looking forward to hearing from him. Rami.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Minister, and thank you, my fellow peers. It's a pleasure to join you on this panel. It's a very important debate, one that will change the world forever. And it's important that we do have friendship with those countries who share our values. Values are very important, and therefore India-UK friendship is made in heaven, as friendship flourishes when we share each other's value. They are both secular democratic countries with the rule of law at the heart of their governance. Unlike China, India does not work to undermine British interest in the world. We have already made the dragon too powerful for our own good, and we are already facing the consequences in South China Sea, Hong Kong, and soon to be faced in Taiwan. So therefore, it is very important not to make a road for our own back at a later stage. India is a stable democracy, and there is no danger of military coup or political upheaval of the type we have just witnessed in Myanmar. We have over 2 centuries of shared history and are no stranger to each other. And if you remember, in both the great wars, over 1 million strong Indian soldiers came to defend our freedom, fought shoulder to shoulder with the Brits. And today we are enjoying the fruit of that collaboration, that we are enjoying record amount of freedom, which is envied of the world. And not only the Indian people fought in the war, they also came to rebuild Britain after devastating wars. They worked in NHS, they worked on the transport industry, hospitals, factories, you name it. They worked and they rebuilt this great country, and we are already here enjoying those fruit. India is the second largest investor in the UK. You have already heard from the Minister. The record employment is generated by the Indian company, and the wealthiest families are now in Britain are Indians. The free trade agreement between Britain and India will be equivalent to having the same with more than 10 countries. It will be between the 4th and the 5th largest economies of the world. British companies are already ahead in terms of innovation, technology, and organizational skill. We can pass our low-tech, labor-intensive and repetitive work to India while focusing on our core business of innovation and the development of a high-tech industry. Trade between Britain and Europe is not growing significantly, whereas the Indian market is growing approximately 6 to 7% per annum. And given the size of the market, this could be a significant growth. By linking up with the Indian company, British company can drive themselves out of sluggish growth, and the Indian companies can move to the next level instantly. For example, India is the largest buyer of defense equipment in the world because of her two hostile neighbors. And Britain arm industry is shrinking. By linking up and making product in Britain, British defense industry can grow as the pharmaceutical companies are already reaping the benefit of collaboration with the Indian company during the COVID pandemic. India can offer British firm the scale of production needed to meet the global need, as the coronavirus pandemic has already shown us. More importantly, we cannot get more motivated workforce than the Indians, because of the tough competition for employment makes people work very hard. We can see how Indians have excelled throughout the world against difficult circumstances. They are now running most of the blue chip companies in the world. English language is official language in India, and as a result, it is easy for British company to work in India. JCB is a prime example. They are making record amount of earth moving equipment and exporting to, I think, about 90 countries from India. So that is the strength of collaboration and cooperation between two countries which are no stranger to each other. One more thing is the India's retail sector is growing due to the exposure of masses to television, satellite, and the internet. India now has the largest middle class population, probably larger than that of the US and Europe combined. The Indian diaspora of over 30 million strong, settled in over 100 countries, is traveling to India more frequently than ever before, thus increasing demand for Western goods. Income in international travel, media awareness have significantly increased the demand for the Western product in India. In Britain, we have iconic brands from Scotch whiskey, biscuit, from chocolate to designer clothes, with a reputation for quality, taste, and Indians for generations have grown up enjoying them. To grow our businesses, we have to either merge, acquire, or to build a strategic alliance. As you just heard from Nick, that I started my company with just £2 in a shed. Today it's in 130 countries, all because building strategic alliance with people. The logic is very simple, that you do need local commanders, you do need local knowledge, and also by joining hands with already established companies, you can strengthen yourself, your operation. So therefore, it is very important for British companies to seek a market. Itself is a huge market and then there's a potential for export to neighboring country. India is so very good. So therefore, I think we need to really develop this partnership for not only for economic benefit, but also for strategic partnership as well, because as you can see, we are surrounded by communist countries who have totally different values to that of our own. So therefore, we have to strengthen those countries who will not come back to haunt us. So on that note, I will just say that we are very fortunate that we have a great companies in the United Kingdom and great company in India ready to join hand with one another and move to the next level. So thank you.
Thank you, Rami. Great overview, not just of the market opportunities which exist in the Indian market, but also of our shared values and shared history, providing a really solid foundation for our shared future, I think we all hope. Next up, we've got Baroness Verma. Baroness Verma has been a peer for well over a decade and served as a government spokesperson and minister for more than 6 years. As well as a spell in the old Department of Energy and Climate Change, Baroness Verma was an international development minister until 2016. Over to you, Baroness Verma.
Thank you very much, Nick. And it's wonderful to follow on from Ranil, our brilliant minister, and of course from Lord Rami Ranger, a very well-established businessman. And of course, for people like myself who have engaged business to business with India, between UK and India for many, many years, it is I think it's a real opportunity for us to actually build on where we've maybe not been as strong as we have in the past. And I really do congratulate the government on taking this relationship to a next level, because I think that there are so many opportunities, and that's been demonstrated very, very easily under this Prime Minister's leadership, on showing how important he believes that this relationship is and will be, and absolutely is vital and critical to both our nations, and for us, particularly post-Brexit. You know, the size and the growth of India's marketplace is a huge opportunity for so many businesses in the UK. There's an abundance of available talent in India. And as Rami said, it's a very stable political system. So there's no doubt in my mind that we really need to put every effort and much more in making sure that this particular relationship is built at a pace, because we have in the past, I firmly believe, taken our foot off the pedal with India. Now that we are going to be out of, we're out of Europe, it gives us so many more opportunities to really re-engage. And, you know, the business organizations that each and every one of us on the panel have engaged with for a very, very long time have been urging and pushing this relationship to grow at pace for many, many years. So the CII, FICCI, IOD India are amongst the biggest business organizations in India, who have encouragingly brought many businesses in their delegations to the UK over the last few years, looking at opportunities, looking at how easy it is to operate in the UK, and with fantastic Indian companies setting up home in the UK, creating jobs for us. I, of course, would love to see the opposite as well, and I'm really pleased at the work Liz Truss, our Secretary of State at DIT, is doing. And she is so ably supported by Ranil, whose area of responsibility it is to make sure that this relationship is strengthened. And, you know, in many conversations that I've had in recent days with our mission in India, you know, there is this excitement. There is a very different environment where we can feel that the Indian business community is really, really wishing to double up their efforts to make sure that businesses coming to invest in India are given a really smooth opportunity to be able to come in, probably partner up often, and in many cases, look at what digitalization has done and enable us to have these relationships that are far, far much more equal now than they have ever been. And just on that note, I think, and this is my plea to my minister, Ranil, the digital platforms are enabling brilliant startups in India. And often those startups are female-led, to be able to get into the new marketplace. And if we can just encourage our digital platforms here to have the same sort of smooth ride in, to collaborate, to meet up, to engage, I really think that unfortunately, what COVID has done is shut down lots of economies, but it's also allowed us to think differently. And in thinking differently, what is enabling me, and I'm talking to lots of startups at the moment in the digital space, is look at how those digital businesses are able to get a wider footprint. And this is the best time ever for us to be able to do that engagement. And I've come across some fabulous startups that are women-led startups, completely different lens. You know, they have a real big focus on social impacting in their businesses. And I think that, you know, going forward, the COVID virus has enabled us all to see how we can collaborate better. I would also like to urge our collaboration at university and research and development level greater, because I think, again, there are so many shared opportunities that in the past, because of the rules in India and because of the way we operated here, were not so often explored. But I think now we're in a very different position where the rules have changed there, and we are much more willing to be able to look at our research and development pieces becoming wider and much more collaborative, as has been seen by the vaccines. And on climate change, I think India under this current Prime Minister took a very strong view that it was going to go hard on the renewable energy sector in India. And I am extremely pleased that during my time as Minister for Energy, those conversations had started with our government under David Cameron then. And I'm really pleased that we're going to use COP26 in Glasgow to really cement those relationships. And I really congratulate Liz Truss for the MOU with the Indian government on offshore wind farms, because we are a world leader. And of course, India has the capacity to be able to increase their own footprint dramatically with the inclusion of offshore wind. And finally, I think I just want us to remind ourselves that whilst we do share this incredibly long relationship, India is now an incredibly big, important player geopolitically, as well as GDP-wise for us. And we need to be able to draw on two massively big strengths that we share. One is the Indian diaspora that has always been consistent in its relationship with forging businesses and relationships between UK and India. And secondly, on our own internal domestic levelling up agenda, I think there are parts of this country that are so well placed to have the investment go both ways between UK and India that I want the government's attention to be really driven on looking at those areas where we've previously not had as much engagement as we could have, but widen our footprint, widen our scope, and really encourage the acceptance that the G7 is maybe now an outdated model, and that we do need to look at the modelling to include those powerhouses that are coming on board, and how do we ensure that we are part of their growth journey as well as they being part of ours. And Nick, if I may, I'll stop at that.
Thank you very much, Sandy. That's very realistic assessment of where things might have stalled in the past, but which also gives us some pointers for the future. And I think your points around HE, green growth, digital and tech are all areas which we'll explore. And I'll put your point about female entrepreneurship in particular to the Minister when we get into the Q&A. Thank you, Sandy. Last but not least, we have Lord Bilimoria. Lord Bilimoria is a British Indian entrepreneur and businessman. And in business terms, he's perhaps best known for founding Cobra Beer, a company that he still chairs. He's a crossbench peer. He's also the Chancellor of the University of Birmingham and currently the President of the CBI. Karen, very much looking forward to your remarks.
Nick, thank you very much, and great to be with you, and thank you to the Centre for Policy Studies for this great event. And Ranil, thanks so much for what you're doing. This is so timely, given Liz Truss and Piyush Goyal just now in India having those really positive discussions about developing a 10-year bilateral strategy and an enhanced trade partnership, paving the way for a UK-India FTA. And here we are, the UK controlling our own independent trade policy for the first time in over 4 decades. And wow, Ranil, hats off to you and your department to roll over 60 of those EU deals in the way that you've done, with a platform now to build on all of them and create new deals, which is what we're talking about here. At the CBI, which I'm proud to be president, our sister organization in India, possibly our closest sister organizations of all the business organizations around the world, is the Confederation of Indian Industry, CII. And to show how close we are, their offices in London are placed within the CBI offices in Cannon Street. The facts are there. The UK and India, we invest a lot in each other. We've got 842 Indian companies in the UK with a combined revenues of almost 50 billion, employing over 100,000 people. We've got over 400 UK companies in India employing 450,000 people directly. We could do a lot, but we could do a lot more. I mean, the Minister mentioned the trade that we do between our two countries, which is almost 25 billion pounds. That should be so much higher. We need to be quadrupling that in the years to come. Good news is the India's budget that just took place last week, there have been more reforms So, for example, the FDI limit for insurance has now been increased to 74%. The CBI Sterling Access 2020 review highlighted how close our relationship is, that even in the midst of a pandemic, the UK continued from April to June last year to invest over 140 million in India, and that increased to almost $1 billion until September. Can you imagine? And that is in the middle of a pandemic. And that makes the UK the third largest G20 investor in India. And in the pandemic, we've done fantastically well as two countries with my fellow Zoroastrian Parsi, Cyrus and Adar Poonawalla, the Serum Institute's the largest vaccine manufacturers in the world, with their partnership with Oxford AstraZeneca, and of course AstraZeneca headquartered in Cambridge, and of course Wockhardt manufacturing in Wales. So it's both ways. So this is fantastic news. You heard we're two of the world's top 7 economies. And of course, India is predicted to be the third largest economy in the world, not so far from now. And I think that the new opportunities are there. Sandy's mentioned them, Rami's mentioned them, ministers mentioned them. We're talking about innovation, the education system, connectivity, tech, infrastructure, the entrepreneurial spirit of India. Wow, I mean, that was unleashed after liberalization. The UK, which was not seen as an entrepreneurial country, we are now seen as one of the most entrepreneurial countries in the world. There's a natural synergy there. Climate change, Sandy spoke of, and the International Solar Alliance. India leads the way in solar. We lead the way in wind. We at the CBI, we just published the Heat Commission. So there's so much we can do together with COP26 coming up, with the G7, with India being invited to G7. And yes, I agree with Sandy. Maybe it's no longer should be the G7. India's been invited, the Prime Minister and his predecessor, many, many times to join the G7. Well, why not make it the G10? And of course, India is a member of the G20. Fintech is a huge area of potential. And another of my fellow Zoroastrian Parsis, Ron Khalifa, is about to introduce his Khalifa review on fintech later this month, and that'll have huge repercussions in India. And just the last couple of points, India's new education policy. As the Chancellor of the University of Birmingham, as you heard, and my roles at Oxford and Cambridge, I'm absolutely excited about the possibility of foreign universities being allowed to open up in India for the first time. This will be a big, big potential for British universities. University of Birmingham is already opening up a state-of-the-art campus in Dubai, which will be open this autumn. And so there we are, G7, COP26, G20, and then the Indo-Pacific. Now, if you speak to an Indian diplomat, they will never say Asia-Pacific. They will say Indo-Pacific. And just now, another think tank, I cannot mention names of other think tanks, produced a report called A Very British Tilt Towards a New UK Strategy in the Indo-Pacific Region. And we had a debate on this region in the House of Lords, which I spoke in last week. And I think this is a big opportunity with a UK-India trade deal specifically. Why? We're now going to be joining the CPTPP, which is great news. We do more than 110 billion pounds of trade, more than the whole of China. India has not joined the RCEP, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership led by China. So India is neither in the CPTPP or the RCEP. So we've got to do this UK-India deal. It's in both our interests. And Rami mentioned security and defense, huge potential there. Our new High Commissioner, Alex Ellis, great news is here. Sandy mentioned immigration, Indian students coming over here. It's going to rocket with the new 2-year post-graduation work visa. Thank you to the government for that. And Rami also mentioned the living bridge, the 30 million plus Indians around the world who are reaching the very top in the world. So very exciting potential going forward. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you, Karen. Lots of food for thought there. And we'll be going to the audience for questions. So please do submit your questions through the Q&A box. Given the time allowed, I'm just going to ask one question before we come to the audience for your questions. And I'm going to put it to the Minister to ask about how realistic the prospects of a free trade deal with India really are. And we know that it's a very complex market. It's a very difficult place in certain respects to do business, not least because of its status with the independent states where a lot of the power lies. And so given that, I just wonder how realistic it really is. And if I may, I'll as part of that, just put a question to you that's come in from Michael Wade, specifically around whether or not we think we could persuade the government of India to open up its market to financial services, such an important part of our offer as a country, such an important part of our economy. And so how realistic is it that we can deliver that FTA and that financial services will be a part of it?
Thanks, Nick. So I'll be delighted to comment on financial services in just a moment, but just for the overall context first, I mean, clearly the relationship is hugely important for both countries and for people in both countries. And I think it goes beyond that. I think it's strategically important as well. And so building on those strong historical links, and with the over 500,000 jobs in our respective economies supported by that bilateral investment, I think it is an opportunity that can be realised, and that's what the Enhanced Trade Partnership is all about. You're right that there are complexities in securing a deal, but there are complexities in securing any deal. The US, for example, has state-level government where much power is held not in the federal level. So there are similarities, but we are pursuing a deal with the United States, and rightly, we have set up this Enhanced Trade Partnership to really identify how we can pursue something with India in the future. But it's not all about a free trade deal in the future. It's also about what we're trying to do now, improving market access for our businesses. And that, on the point on financial services, there's a great recent win that perhaps some folks on this call would find interesting on financial services. So we've actually been able to remove the withholding tax on the branches of foreign reinsurance firms that operate in India, and that's especially important as we're all aware of Britain's and indeed London's strength in this area. So I'm sure there is more that we can do in that area. It's not all about services. We're exporting organic fertiliser, polyhalite from North Yorkshire, which is great for UK exporters, but also for Indian farmers who can then use that fertiliser to increase crop yields, which is good news. And we're also strengthening our cooperation in areas of law and justice. We are working to make sure that for example, our arbitrators are now able to participate in Indian-seated arbitrations. So progress is being made, and I think that if anyone can get a deal between two countries, it's Britain and India. It's got to be.
Thanks, Ranil. Thank you very much. I'd like to invite Stephen Hammond, who's got his hand up, to, if he can, come in and appear on screen and put a question to the panel, please. We'll just give this 5 seconds, and if it doesn't work, I will.
Hello, can you hear me now?
We can.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you to all the panelists for a fascinating presentation. And I think Michael Wade asked the question that a lot of us would have liked to ask, because I think that's hugely important. But can I concentrate just on the digital? Sandy spoke a lot about digital, the need for embracing the relationship around digital. It seems to me that fintech, medtech, are areas of great British expertise, which we can really develop with the Indians. And I'm also very keen to understand whether or not, in terms of the greening, India clearly still has a very large rail infrastructure and other infrastructures. And there's huge opportunities in dual fueling of technology in terms of trains. And so I just wanted to get the panel's views on how we can make sure that the future relationship is embedded in our technological development across and digital development.
Thanks very much, Stephen. Perhaps, Karen, I could ask you to kick things off on that one.
With that digital side, I mean, that's just a perfect fit. India made its mark, if you look back over the last 2 decades, in IT services in the digital areas. Companies like Infosys, Wipro, Tata, with the work that Tata have done as absolute pioneers in that field. So I think, again, and the UK now, we have become with our clusters. We've got these fantastic clusters. Cambridge University is one example of the Cambridge cluster, particularly regarding tech, where we've got these models and examples that we can work with India. And India, of course, has got Bangalore, but now it's throughout India. You've got technology clusters, including in Chennai, for example. So I think you've got the educational institutions. You've got the IITs in India that are doing phenomenal work in tech, the Indian Institutes of Science as well. You put this all together, get universities and business working together in both countries. The UK-India Research Initiative, which has been going now, it's in phase 3. Fantastic collaboration between 2 universities, 2 academics. Why don't we take it one step further and have academic collaboration, but have a business involved as well, sponsoring that, particularly with regard to tech and digital. And we get so much R&D and innovation between the 2 countries to both our benefit. So a lot of potential going forward.
Thanks, Ken. Does anybody else want to comment on that? There's plenty of other questions, so
Nick, I'd just like to come in, as someone who started something from zero. The best thing is we have to understand hidden talent is no talent. If the British companies have talent, they have to go and tell the world what benefit they can bring to the table. It's no good having a talent and not sharing with the world and not telling the people in their language or to user-friendly language how they can bring the benefit. I think our role is to encourage UK businesses to go to India, exhibit, demonstrate to them what we offer and what benefit we can bring to the table. So therefore, it's it's no point having a great deal of talent, but not letting the world know. So we need to really go out and get it. I mean, the business is not looking locally. Now we have to look globally. Britain, after Brexit, we are open for business, and we now need to go global as well.
Thanks, Rami. Sandy, were you looking to come in?
Yeah, just very briefly, it was what Karen said about the railways. It is such a huge opportunity to look at the railways, because just by the technology that is at his hand now, the railway stations in India could be multi-usage facilities, not just for upgrading with the solar systems, but actually for the local communities. Because if you look at the length and breadth of the rail systems in India and the solar energy that could be generated, it's just massive. And I just feel it's such an exciting time to exchange these ideas. That was all I wanted to say on.
Nick, very quickly, this is such an important point that Sandy's just made. At the University of Birmingham, exactly a year ago, I was in India, and we were partnering with the India's railway ministry. I mean, it's the biggest railway in the world, one of the biggest employers in the world. And we've got our railway center at the University of Birmingham. It's a world award-winning center. We've just got the first hydrogen-powered train in the Midlands running, created by the University of Birmingham. Just imagine, and what we are already. And India's now got a rail university.
Yeah, there's huge going on in that area.
Yeah.
There's a huge amount going on in that area, which we should exploit. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you very much, panel. Ranil, if I may, I'll come back to you with a bit of a challenge that was posted by Sandy as part of her remarks around sort of female entrepreneurship in particular. And COVID has obviously had wide-ranging implications in lots of respects. But it was interesting, I thought, that Sandy said that one of the things that's come out of that has been a rise in female entrepreneurship, particularly through the digital agenda. And I was wondering if you could comment on whether that was something which your department was aware of, and whether there's opportunities for collaboration specifically around that issue.
Well, I mean, this is a really interesting area, and you'll appreciate that Liz, particularly as Minister for Women and Equalities, has a double hat here, not only looking at how trade can help women and girls around the world, boost economies around the world, but also from an equalities perspective, how we can make sure that our work is properly balanced. And the Prime Minister himself has sought to push this agenda forward. The greatest enabler of this is, of course, the education of women and girls. And the Prime Minister has repeatedly set out his commitment to make sure that we are championing that in countries all around the globe. And with the right skills, it is of course possible to grow economies further than they are today, particularly in developing economies. I know from some of my work elsewhere in the world, in Africa, there is some great potential. Africa, I know we're here to talk about India, but in Africa, they have faster broadband than I have here in Hampshire, because they're using the latest technology to use wireless connectivity all over their countries across the continent. And that is an enabler for people who are previously not able to access the global economy to do so for the very first time. So it's absolutely an area that we think has much potential. Tech, data, digital are all not only buzzwords, but areas that we think Britain has particular strengths, and therefore we become the natural partner, we hope, for the unicorns of the future. So we're firmly on it. But I would make one word of caution, which is that it's not for government to pick the unicorns. The government is not destined to decide which businesses will succeed and which will not. So we watch very carefully, and we work with our fellow governmental partners to do all that we can to make sure that there is that ability to work across national boundaries and enable business to thrive.
Can I just add here, Nick, just based on what Ranil just said, so important. There is a way government and business working together, which we've seen has been so powerful in this pandemic. And in the midst of all this, we've had a big UK-India deal, the One Web transaction. My friend Sunil Mittal has invested $500 million alongside the UK government for a massive satellite project. And space is a big area where there's potential for our two countries. I mean, India's got a phenomenal space program, launches thousands of satellites. The UK has got our own space program. In defense terms, we're just launching our Space Command. And as a group captain of the Royal Air Force, we're very proud about the new Space Command that's coming. The defense links there again. What about India? If it has its own Space Command and working collaboratively together, the potential is enormous.
Thanks very much, Karen. Sandy, did you want to come back on the Minister's comments around female entrepreneurship?
Yeah, and of course, I wouldn't expect government, my government, to pick the unicorns. However, what I do think is really important and really useful is how do we ensure that those businesses that are on these platforms do have access to market. And, you know, each of the major business organizations in India, FICCI, CII, IOD, all have networks within networks. And I think it's about the question should be put to everybody. Well, you know, budding entrepreneurs come in all shapes and sizes. And where are they and how are they being supported? I am very keen to ensure that we don't let this opportunity that's arisen to be ignored. And, you know, I'm working very closely with the Women's Chapter of Trade and Commerce in India, and that has chapters across the world. And I think it's about will and leadership. And I think in conversations, and I completely agree with you, Ranil, Liz is a great supporter and a great champion, but it can't just be Liz. It has got to be across government departments, across business leadership. And I think there's a willingness that we need to be able to change the dial a bit. So, you know, I think there's a lot of work to be done. I think the opportunities are huge. And I think the sectors themselves are beginning to demonstrate that don't ignore us, because if you ignore us, it's at your peril.
Thanks, Andy. A couple of slightly more challenging questions around the concept of shared values, and I'll put these forward and see if any of the panel want to come forward, and if not, I'll nominate somebody. One of them is around the Open Doors watch list, which talks about the fact that India's in the top 10 of countries worldwide where Christians are persecuted, and also points to some persecution around Muslims in the country, and argues whether or not that really shows the shared values that we are claiming exist between the two countries. And another point around the farmers' protest that's been happening in India recently, Nushka Sharma points out that a lot of direct descendants of farmers are UK born and raised and are currently dismayed about what's happening with the protest, and asking what we can do to intervene. So I'll sort of package those up and ask a wider question really about how the UK as a partner and as an ally of India can bring forward these sorts of issues and raise its concerns in an appropriate way. Does anybody want to come in on that?
I'll come in, Nick. I'll come in. So, someone who's ethnic in India, I'm a Sikh, as you know. We're a minority. First of all, the government of India has given us a constitution where equality for all is enshrined, regardless of race, religion, gender, color, your background. You are all one by the constitution. The judiciary in India is independent and accept that fact, that the upholding of constitution is paramount. Now, what happened on the ground is such a huge country. You have to understand there is such a big country. It's a continent, subcontinent they call it. So minor incidents do take place here and there, but that is not inspired by the government. There is a minority commission in India which oversees the interest of minorities in India. So that, you can go on the website, you can see the minority commission exists, and it is headed by a Muslim, by the way. Yes. And the irony is people complain about India, but no one wants to leave India. If India is so oppressive country, you would have queues of people trying to abandon India, going to the neighboring country. On the other hand, people are entering India illegally. India has to build a barbed fence across the border with Bangladesh and other places because the people are coming to India because of its secular constitution and equality and the value. So all these minorities, they have to rise above the rest. In the Corona pandemic, you have seen how a tiny Sikh community has been recognized by the Americans, the Canadians, the Australians, the New Zealand, the British government for their work. I mean, that just shows how hard work in this community is. You can only look after other people if you're willing to work hard yourself. Blaming other people is not going to help us. So we have to rise above the rest. India offers equality. I mean, you have seen a lot of people have come to United Kingdom. They have not done well. You just can't become well or successful just changing country. There's a proverb in India, if you're bad in Bombay, you'll be bad in Calcutta too. So therefore, people who have done well in United Kingdom against all the equal challenges speaks volumes about that community. So therefore, I don't believe there's a persecution in India, but at the same time, there are people at the local level, they will be resentful that somebody systematically trying to convert people that is not something we should be doing in this day and age, like we did in past. Missionary used to come and start saying, we don't want to do that. Freedom of religion is something my community was established, that a religion should be left to individual, how you want to follow it. So I will defend India on that. I mean, I'm born in Pakistan. We arrived in India as a refugees because our country was turned into an Islamic country and people were devalued who were not Muslim, and India gave us equality. We have a Sikh Prime Minister, we have Sikh President, we have Sikh Army General, Sikh Navy Chief Admiral or Air Force. So we don't have a problem. And coming back to the farmers dispute, if I may, it is very unfortunate the law has divided India, not only in India, but throughout the world. And the government is very keen to find a solution. You have to understand they've given a suspension of the law for 1.5 years, so that within that 1.5 years, a committee of farmers should sit down and negotiate. I think it's all about working together. After all, farmers are no stranger. They are Indian. They not only provide food to India, but they also provide maximum soldier for the defense of India. They're very hardworking, sincere, and committed community, and nobody should ever question their loyalty and integrity for India. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. A couple of other questions I'm going to try and get through quickly. I appreciate we have to finish soon. There's a question from Nico McDonald, specifically around the opportunities for collaboration in higher education. Nico points to creativity and design and technology and engineering in particular areas where both countries are strong. So I think the short question is, what are the opportunities for us to be able to do more in terms of collaboration between higher education institutions? And Karen, I'll point that one at you, if that's okay.
Thank you. That's something I spoke about in my remarks. That it's already happening. We've got research collaborations that have been going on. The new opportunity for UK universities to open up in India is going to be a huge opportunity. And the exchange of faculty and staff. And the most important thing is collaborative research. And I can give you example after example. Say Birmingham University, we've done research with Punjab University is one example. Our field-weighted impact on our own is 1.7, 1.3. When we do collaborative research, it's 5.3, 5.4. It's that much more powerful. So there's enormous potential in every single field you can imagine. including tech, including in agriculture. I chair the Tigris program for the second green revolution with the University of Cambridge, where we're working in India with government departments, universities, research establishments on the India second green revolution. Wow, what a difference we're making. So all this is happening. We just need to power it ahead and do much more of it and publicize it as well.
Thanks very much, Karen. Before we wrap up, one final, very thought-provoking and I think fair question that's come in from James Sheridan, who points out that everybody on the panel has been very outspoken about the opportunities that exist for the UK in terms of working with India. But he asks if we sort of put the shoe on the other foot and look through the lens of India looking at the UK, why it is we think that why India should prioritise the UK in particular over other economies and partners. And I'd like each of the panelists perhaps just to give us 20, 30 seconds on this, if I may, starting with Lord Ranger. You're on mute.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. First of all, India does have challenges. You know, India is only 73 years old country, and it is opening up, and it has got a lot of challenges. There's a big red tape which is being eliminated as we speak. So therefore, if things are easy, then everybody will be able to replicate. So my advice to all the British companies, do you go when things are difficult, because as if you'll have less competition. We have gone to challenging market in Africa, Caribbean, Far East and Middle East because they were difficult market. There were less competition for us. We were able to succeed. So therefore, it's very, very important that you go to India now than later, because later it might be all over. There might be Germans, French, Japanese, they might be already in there. So therefore, wherever there is a challenge, there's opportunity. And I think, as Karan has said, there's a huge potential with education. Every Indian spend much more resources on their children's education than anything else. So education, technology, solar, India offers a scale of production to British companies. They cannot, it's a necessity to link up with a strategic partner, because you just can't survive on your own these days.
Thank you, Rami. Thank you. Sandy, I'll come to you next. I know you had a 1 o'clock hard stop, so if you need to answer this question and then jump straight off the call, by all means do. But just a quick reminder, why should India prioritise the UK in terms of its future economic relationships?
Yeah, well, I think it's a critical question, Nick, but I think it's because the companies that are coming in from India can see how easy it is to set up in the UK, how easy it is to operate and find partners. And I think if we can get the same going on in India, I think this is a perfectly matched relationship. I don't want to go into the historical side, but I do think the fact that the digitalization of businesses is really helping us forge that relationship, I think is the key to being able to expand quickly and progressively.
Thanks, Sandy. Karen, over to you.
What I've seen in almost 15 years since I set up the UK-India Business Council is we are in a race and we're competing with the rest of the world to do business with India. Everyone wants to. The French do, the Italians do, the Americans do, the Japanese. So we are in competition. So we have got to go the extra mile. Go the extra mile in going to India, and go the extra mile in welcoming Indians, Indian businesses, Indian students to come here to the UK. And we've got so much to offer. We're an open, outward-looking economy and always should be and will be. We've been the gateway to Europe. When we're members of the EU, we should continue to be a gateway to Europe. So I think we've got to sell ourselves, we've got to engage, and we've got to go the extra mile, and then we will win, because we are a natural partnership. It's a special relationship like we have with America, we have with India. We need to get on with it.
Thanks, Karen. Ranil, is this government ready to go the extra mile?
We already are. And what I'd say is we do have shared values, Britain and India. We are the oldest and the biggest democracies in the world. We both want to champion free trade and not crony capitalism in the world. And we want to make sure that our people have the opportunities that they deserve. So there is a real sense of partnership between us. And that's why Britain is a great country for India to do business with. We can see the, as I've said already, the huge number of jobs, over 500,000 jobs in each other's markets. We can see the investment flows that go from strength to strength. We can see that with the continued growth of services, that distance need not be a barrier. And of course, the English language makes it easier to do business between our two countries than with many others. So, so many reasons why this partnership should succeed, and indeed why Britain is an ideal partner for India, and of course, as others have said, vice versa. But if I can just perhaps use my last word to thank the CPS for putting this together, for what has been a really interesting discussion, and I'm sure there'll be many more in the months and years ahead.
Thank you very much, Ranil. And in return, I will thank you and all the panelists for so generously giving your time today. A very positive and uplifting note on which to finish a really fascinating discussion across a lot of different topics. I'll wrap it up PDQ, because I'm sure everyone's got another Zoom or Teams call to rush straight off to. But if I could just thank you all very much on behalf of myself. Yes.
Nick, I just want to recognize the contribution of current Bilimoria, the Lord Bilimoria, bringing Britain and India and United Kingdom closer. This gentleman has sacrificed, paid huge amount of personal time and effort and energy, and today we are seeing the benefit. So I think you are the father of the UK-India partnership, along with Patricia Hewitt. So both of you done wonderful work, so we must recognize them. Thank you.
Thank you, Rami. Thank you for kind words.
Ranil, what can I say? Your passion, your commitment is so energetic that it will happen. And having a partnership with India is not a choice; it's a necessity now, with the way world is changing. And together with, you have the technology of the future, and we have the desire, the hunger to grow as we want to be a world, the positive power in the world.
Thanks, Rami. You are the living embodiment of the extra mile, Karen. Thank you all very much for joining us.
Thanks, Ranil. Thanks.